Hey guys, less is more back with another video, and today we're going to be discussing a hand I played in 500 Zoom against a fellow Zenith member, Alex. So Alex is going to be joining me on this video here in a second, but so he's the villain in the hand, I'm hero on the button here. I'm just going to be going through the hand real quick, and then we're going to be hopping on a call together, and then talking through the hand a little bit and kind of each go through our own thought processes. So this is, 500 Zoom on Ignition. I open the button for 2.5 bigs. He calls in the big blinds. Flop is King Jack 4. Goes check check. Turn is an offsuit brick. And he 3x probes the turn. I call. And then turn is another low brick, the 6 of diamonds. And then he jams like 2.5 times pot on the river, and I call. So that's the hand. I'm going to pause the video real quick and bring him in to discuss the hand real quick. Oh yeah, he had ace-3 of hearts as well. Okay guys, we're back. I have Alex on the call here with me. Say hi, Alex.
Hello everyone.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so he's villain in the hand here in the big blinds. I just got done replaying the hands. They kind of know what's going on. And I'm just going to ask you to kind of talk through your thought processes. But the viewers know what I have. I showed your hand at the end of the video here, so just sort of talk us through this. So you call in the big blind. That's like a pretty standard defend.
Yeah, I mean, it does get mixed as a free bet at some frequency, but it's like a 90-something% call in that spot.
Yep. So yeah, flop is King Jack 4. Pretty good board for imposition. Going to have like a myriad of sizes, but definitely going to have some checkbacks on this board given like the wetter texture. On boards where out of position is going to have plenty of draws to defend with, in position is going to be checking back lots of different strength hands, just because like small bets don't function as well. Like they just don't perform as efficiently when out of position is going to have plenty of hands to defend with. So it goes check check on the flop. Turn is an offsuit brick, and now Alex has ace-3 of hearts in the big blind. Kind of talk us through your decision here.
Yeah, so in terms of overbet probe sizing, I find that the specific sizing, generally is going to vary anywhere from 2x to 4x with our polar range here. And I find that generally when there's the more draws there are on the board, and the lower the high card is on the board, we seem to be more inclined to go closer to 2x. Then when the high card is somewhere, around a king or an ace, or if it's a rainbow board, it gets closer to the 4x side. And because it's king high and there's a single flush draw, a 3x is kind of in the middle size. And when we look at the simulations shortly, we'll be able to see that 3x does end up being the preferred size for a turn probe here.
Yep. Yeah. So the important thing is that when you use an overbet probe, you have to be able to use a hand that can outdraw a villain's calling range. So if you probe huge, you have to be able to outdraw imposition's defense. Like these top pair that I check back on the flop, when out of position probes huge on the turn, imposition is going to defend most of their top pair. So out of position needs to develop an overbet bluffing range that utilizes draws that can improve to beat imposition's all of their different hand strengths that would call versus that bet size. Like versus a 3x probe, like some of this, like a lot of this Jack X and 4x and Deuce X aren't going to call. It's like most of the continues are going to be flush draws, top pair, and like ace queen type hands. So yeah, villain just like the bluffs that out of position uses here just needs to be able to outdraw those hands is the main thing. And then so I call, and then on the river, yeah, what do you think here?
Yeah, so on this river, I mean the main draw that completes here is 5-3. And given that you have 5-3 in your range as well, like generally our bluffs here are going to have to contain either a 5 or a 3. So obviously ace 3 is a decent candidate for that. Also, after having overbet the turn, the ace high doesn't really have any showdown value anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like the worst hand that Josh is going to call with, like he might have some amount of queen 10, but most of his, like almost all of his calling range there is going to have the ace 3 beat. And also having a 3 is slightly better than a 5 here, just because Josh is going to have more 5x that can fold against the River Jam, whereas the amount of 3x that he'll have is generally just going to only be 5-3. So yeah, ace 3 is a pretty good combo here. Also, not having spades is very good.
Yep.
Yeah, another consideration that I suppose stems from the turn is that Josh should actually have some like ace king and aces that check back flop. It's not a huge amount, but there are some, and so having the ace is actually pretty decent as well.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, so I would agree with all of that. Yeah, so yeah, so the king 5 of hearts, blocking the straight is a pretty decent call, and unblocking all of the spade draws is pretty good. So it's probably a standard call. I'd imagine it's pretty close to indifferent, but I'd imagine this is much better than king 5 with any other kicker, especially unblocking queen 10 as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how often queen 10 would jam river in my spot, just because queen 10 would block too many folds. If I remember correctly, it is mostly that like the ace 3 type hands. I believe there's some 2x that's also bluffing river in my spot. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think the Broadway draws are actually bluffing river too often in my spot, just they block too many folds. But ace 3 is it's just a pure jam, just too good a removal in terms of both blocking and unblocking properties.
Yep, agreed. I'm going to pause the video and then pull up the sim. Okay, so we're back. Pulled up the Pio sim. So this is just this is a pretty decent sized single raised pot tree here, just under 20 gigabytes. So yeah, we're gonna take a look here. Let's see, for out of position. Yeah, so out of position has a quarter, half pot, 2x pot, and 4x pot. We'll subtree this in a second. Take a look. Take a look at the 3x size. But here we'll take a look at the in position C betting strategy. So on these double Broadway boards, in position is going to be using some different sizes. So like on one thing I should have mentioned is on the double Broadway boards, imposition is going to almost always have a small bet size, just because the board is so good for them. And yeah, out of position is just going to have to fold a lot of their, lower high card hands against a bet without an overcard to the board. Whereas like on the lower boards, like a lot of versus a small bet, especially on a flush draw board, a lot of the high card hands, a lot more of the high card hands are going to be able to continue. Whereas here, like the only high card hand with an overcard to the board is ace high. So, yeah. So you'll see like the king high hands are bet in terms of frequency, like quite linearly. Once you get down to like king 6 and king 5, king 3, king 2, those are often going to be betting small or checked back. So in the check line, on the deuce of diamonds. So even in the check line, just because imposition check back does not mean the range disadvantage for out of position just disappears. Like imposition should still be checking back a good number of strong hands. Like you'll see, like even aces and ace king are still checking back a good amount. In addition to ace jack, and like king queen, those are all quite strong hands that will go into the check back line at some frequency. So yeah, just because it goes check on the flop does not mean like out of position suddenly has like a range advantage. Let's see. Yeah, you'll see like the equity for out of position even on this brick turn after it goes check is just under 47%. So they're still at a disadvantage. So like when out of position bets on a card that really doesn't improve their range at all, well, this card doesn't really interact with either range too strongly. The out of position player is going to be betting quite polar because the in position player is still going to have a lot of top pair and quite strong hands like ace king and aces. So the out of position betting range should mostly be centered around hands that can beat a lot of those stronger checkbacks. You're not going to be wanting to bet like at a high frequency with a lot of like marginal hands. Like this Jack X isn't going to be betting a bunch for value, and not to mention that since the board is higher, this Jack X is not going to need as much protection along with the King X. If the board was like 10 high, then like that position player would want to bet for a smaller size with 10x just like for protection purposes, since there's so many overcards that could kill their hand. But yeah, on this turn, out of position doesn't really need to bet many hands for protection, and they're still at a disadvantage in terms of pretty much every pair rank. So yeah, out of position, like with their strongest pairs, are just going to want to let in position bet for them, and then occasionally put in like some massive bets with the very top of their range, like king jack and sets like fours and twos. We'll see that ace three is quite often a probe for the massive size. You'll see ace three of spades, like with the flush draws, is almost a pure 4x probe on the turn. So that I mentioned earlier that the bluffs used by the out of position player for this overbet size, when called, you need to be able to outdraw the calling range. Alex, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I suppose another thing to add is just the sort of frequency that I was using in game at the time. So at the time, I was estimating that with my combo, I'd be doing somewhere between 50 and 25% frequency. I'd use that size just because, yeah, with the ace free without the flush draw, it can improve to beat the top pairs on a lot of rivers. But if we're doing it, 100% of the time, we're just way over bluffing because we only have so many 2-pair plus hands, and also a lot of our 2-pair pluses can get counterfeit on a lot of rivers. So due to the combination of a lack of clarity on certain rivers and the fact that we'd have way too many bluffs, ones without a flush draw, we need to, I suppose, be a bit careful about our frequencies. And yeah, so over here, roughly 50% seems to be what's set out by the solver. So in practice, I was actually slightly under bluffing in terms of frequency in game.
Okay, yeah. These gut shots are mostly going to be centered around 50% frequency. Then the flush draws being, the combo draws being used the most often, because they're going to be able to most frequently outdraw the calling range. So I'm going to pause this video and subtree to include the 3x size real quick. Okay, so we're back. I ran the subtree down to about 0.13%. So yeah, so here's the turn spot. We'll see the vast majority of the betting from out of position is going to be centered around 3x pot. So yeah, on these higher boards, looks like the optimal size is going to be about 3x. And yeah, notice out of position is just not betting as much for aforementioned reasons. Yeah, so we can see ace three is still betting quite a bit. Yeah, and so here's the response. You'll see like all the top pairs is still just a call, and then yeah, like these lower pocket pairs are folding, especially without the suit. Once you get up to like sevens with the suit, you're starting to call just because if you like you do block some bluffs. However, if you hit a set on the river, the flush cannot complete simultaneously, so you still have like quite a strong hand. Whereas like if you hit a set when the flush comes in, it's like you can't raise for value or bet very big for value after the 3x probe on the turn. Anything to add, Alex?
Those just in terms of the frequencies of those pairs that call, like sevens and eights are calling more just because they unblock so many bluffs because no straight draws contain an 8 or a 7, obviously. I mean that's a small frequency difference, but definitely a concern that you should take into account when you're bluff catching against these turn probes.
Yeah. So the eights and the sevens unblock straight draws that like sixes and fives do block. Same thing with threes and pocket nines. So yeah, good thing to point out. Yeah. And then let's see, it's like a brick 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see that the out of position range. The bluffs are really centered around 5x and 3x. So yeah, these flush draws containing a 5 are quite often bluffed. The ace-5 of spades, not so much. The ace-3 of spades going forward a bit more often, but yeah, I mean, blocking the nut flush draw folds is quite detrimental. Like if out of position jams and positions folding all these ace-high flush draws, so blocking that folding region so heavily is not so great. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, so versus the jam, we'll see like these king 10, king 9 are folded a bit more often than these king X blocking the straight draws. We'll see king 3 is like the highest frequency call. Let's see, so the 5 blocks all of these 5x bluffs, whereas like out of position doesn't have as much suited 3x that would bluff jam the river. But like out of position has like the 7-5, 8-5, 9-5, 10-5 from pre-flop, whereas they don't have those sorts of hands with a 3 in it from pre-flop. So the king 3 just unblocks those 5x bluffs.
And also ace 5 off is a pretty significant bluff, whereas ace 3 off isn't in the out of position range.
That's also true. Yep. So ace 5 combinatorically does make up a pretty good density of out of position range here. You'll notice that the ace 5, let's see. So the ace 5 not containing a spade is like when it overbet probes the turn. When you get to the river with ace 5 without a spade, you're just almost pure going for it, unblocking spade draw folds. Whereas if you had a spade, you block some of those flush draws that call the turn and then fold the river versus a jam. Yeah. Do you notice anything else, Alex?
Yeah, I suppose another thing to just take note of is that we do actually take this line with king queen off at a reasonable frequency. So to make sure we're not over bluffing here, we actually can go as thin as king queen here for value. And I think that's something that a lot of people aren't doing. The free X probe and jam river for reasonably thin value with the king queen here.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, notice we're doing so. So the king queen with the queen of spades is the one that's jamming the river at a decent frequency. This is just blocking the folding region, unblocking calls. So like the queen of spades blocks like the queen 10 and like the queen high flush draws that would call the turn and then fold the river. So they're just more likely to have a single pair hand that would call versus a jam, whereas like the king queen without a spade unblocks the hands where if you check they would just like imposition would just bluff for you. So yeah, it just functions as a better bet when you have the queen of spades. Anything else to add, Alex?
Yeah, so it's also having the queen of spades means that our opponent can't overfold with their queen of spade type hands, because that way we actually have a good amount of value with the queen of spades as well. Because yeah, it's kind of balancing the queen of spades blocker.
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you're going to be going for it with the queen of spades, having the queen of spades with a value hand is pretty good because then it just makes like your opponent's going to have a much more difficult time bluff catching, unblocking the queen of spades. So yeah, I think that wraps up the video. Alex, thanks for coming on.
No problem.
And thanks for watching, guys.